Hey everyone, I hope you guys have had a great week. This week we're going to be looking at relationships in the informative interview. We're going to talk about networking and how to handle difficult interviewees. Now, professional networking is very important, especially for where you all are in your career as you're graduating college, maybe getting that first job, or maybe wanting to change your career. You're back in school trying to get new skills for a new career. Where you are right now, networking can really help you out. And really at every stage in your career or in your life, networking can help you out. And even if you didn't choose the networking assignment for your first major assignment and you're interviewing someone about their life event, that's still networking. That's still working through other people to get information and to expose yourself to new opportunities. So professional networking relationships are actually mutually beneficial because not only is that person helping you, but you're also helping to expand that person's network as well. And I'll show you an example in just a few minutes of how my own network has helped me, but has also helped other people as well. So one of your assignments that you are going to do this week is a network map, where you're going to put yourself in the middle, and then you're going to expand out to all the areas of your life that you're involved in, and who's important to you, and who could you go to as a resource as you are maybe looking into a new career, wanting to get a new hobby, wanting just to get information about someone. What does your network look like? So you'll have that view by the end of next week. And if you're familiar with Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation, somehow we're all connected to Kevin Bacon, according to that theory. Now, I do have a fun example to kind of show you, just a very simple network map that connects me to Serena Williams. Okay, so here's me. This is my daughter. She's 12. Actually, she's 13. Excuse me. She'll be 13 next week. She is a pretty involved, high-level junior tennis player, travels around a lot, plays a lot of tennis. Through her tennis, she has met this tennis player, Bethany Mattek-Sands, who is former world number one doubles player. They met on social media. We've actually spent time with her at different tennis events, and so I can legitimately say that they know each other, they communicate semi-regularly, all those things. We've built a relationship. Well, since we know Bethany, and Bethany knows Serena Williams, technically, Serena Williams is part of our network. So, we may not realistically be able to call her for coaching advice, but it's theoretically conceivable, possible, that at some point we can meet Serena Williams through Bethany Mattek-Sands. That's how powerful a network can be. And even the fact, you look at the means of communication. Social media has done so much for us to be able to connect with people from all over the world. And I'll use, my 13-year-old daughter as an example. Through her Instagram, she has met other tennis players in other countries. She has met tennis players in the United States that she's been able to play with at various tournaments. And she's met actual professional tennis players who's helping her to grow in her tennis and her experience. So networking can be very powerful, and it can lead you to some pretty influential people. But let's take a look at a more realistic view of a networking map. So here I am in the middle, and I have listed out, or kind of off of my picture, the different areas of my life that have been important to me in my growth, professionally and also personally. And you can lay your map out however you would like. This is just an example. But let me just show you how some of these connections work. So one connection I have is through UALR, where I got my master's degree, and then I started my career in teaching. Worked with some fantastic people. They're no longer here, they're all retired, but they were like family to me and really helped shape me and guide me and provide some direction with what I wanted to do. So after I got my master's degree, I taught at UALR for a couple of years. And then they told me, as good mentors do, it's time to move on. You need to go use your degree in a professional environment and gain that experience. So I went to work for Axiom. Now, Axiom's not on here, but I do have the people listed here that I met at Axiom who I worked with. So Libby Whitehurst was my boss there. Loved working for Libby, loved working at Axiom. I only stayed there about 2 years because I really was interested in healthcare. So I went to work for UAMS. When I worked at UAMS, I worked for a person named Kathleen McComber. And on my team, I had a person named Becky Harwell. Now, Becky was also a student of mine at UALR. So there's a connection there. I met Kathleen and worked there for about 8 years, enjoyed it, but then I wanted to come back to teaching. So I went back to UALR, back with this wonderful group of people. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I got a phone call from Kathleen, my old boss at UAMS, who told me that another former boss of mine, Libby Whitehurst, had a position at First Orion and I should apply for it. So I did, and I got the job, and it's been the best job that I've ever had. And I can see myself retiring here and finishing my career here. So all of that started with this group of people pushing me out to go work somewhere else, networking and meeting people, and everything's come full circle, and I'm working for Libby again in a fantastic environment. Now also, Becky, who reached out to me about the job at UAMS to come work on my team, she then got a promotion and eventually became the head of human resources at UAMS. So through our relationship and through networking with me, she was able to get a job there that really allowed her career to take off too. So kind of a long story to get to the point of people in your life are important, and who you know, how you know them can really open doors for you and lead you into areas you may never have expected. And it also teaches us that you don't burn bridges, that everyone you meet, even if it's a difficult relationship and you don't quite understand the purpose of it in the moment, could have an impact on you at some point down the road. Things come full circle. People enter, leave, and re-enter your life. So don't burn those bridges and do what you can to build those strong relationships. So one of your assignments this week is to map out who you know, how you know them, what are the connections, and then also really look at where do you need to build some connections. Where might you need to kind of build up your network and get to know people. And I know everyone's different. I know there's introverts. I know there's extroverts. I know all of those things about, your desire to engage with people and whatnot. But the more opportunities that you allow yourself to get to know someone, to reach out to that person and learn about them, then the more opportunities you're going to have down the road for different experiences, for help, for advice, all of those things you may need at some point. Now, also, too, I have some articles posted about difficult interviewees, because you guys are about to start interviewing people, and it could get tricky, depending on what you're talking about, how willing they are to open up, the questions that you ask, all of those things can bring out different emotions and behaviors in people. So I've listed out some of the behaviors that we see sometimes that can be considered difficult in an interview. Someone who becomes too emotional, they become hostile or reticent and don't want to answer. Maybe they talk too much, and you got to kind of get them pulled back into the point of the question or redirect them in some way. Maybe they're evasive and they kind of answer but don't really answer. And maybe you just don't have a good rapport with that person. And that can be challenging too. So here are some strategies to consider as you deal with sometimes your difficult interviewees. Give them time to think. If you can tell they're not quite ready to respond or they're not quite sure what to say, give them a few minutes to think about it, to gather their thoughts, reassure them that that's okay. Acknowledge any hostility that you may find. I see that this is making you uncomfortable. Let's redirect. Let's go talk about something else, and we can come back to this if you want to. Or ask a neutral question, something that's not going to be threatening to that interviewee. Also, think about how you start the interview. So sometimes if it's kind of a heavy topic, like for example, those of you that are interviewing people about life events, you might get into some, heavy conversation that may be hard. So keep things kind of light. Start the conversation off with some lighter questions, kind of work up maybe to those more difficult questions. If you have someone who talks a lot, use some closed questions. Okay, and use your nonverbals to indicate that you need to move on. The head nods. Okay, well let's take a look at this question, or just kind of keep them moving as best as you can. But oftentimes you may have to ask very closed questions just to get them to kind of tone down that talking. You can also rephrase questions if they're confused, if part of their hostility or their evasiveness, they might not understand the question. You may need to rephrase it, but definitely avoid stereotypes. So sometimes we go into the interview expecting someone to be a certain way, and we all have stereotypes, and we all kind of make assumptions about people, and sometimes that alone can cause maybe you to behave in a way that would bring out some of these more difficult behaviors. So you also have to monitor yourself and make sure that you're not exhibiting some of these behaviors that may be creating, some of that environment. So just a few things to keep in mind. As I said, I have some articles. So let me show you what we're going to be focused on for this week. Lots of things to read. So here are a couple of articles about dealing with difficult interviewees, some of the things that I just mentioned. There's also some networking tips and networking strategies that you can read about that will help you as you do your network map. Okay. Now for your network map, you can draw this on paper if you want to. You can do it computer, whatever you would like. But draw out your map and then answer these 2 questions. What stands out to you, and where have you made most of your connections? And then where do you need to expand your network? The second assignment is the interview agenda for your major assignment 1. So if you did a networking interview or if you did a life event interview, now's the time to submit your questions. And what I would like for you to do is define your opening. So how are you going to build rapport? What's the goal of the interview? Then provide a detailed list of the questions that you want to ask. They don't have to be in a particular, order right now. You'll probably change that up some. But you definitely want to list out all of your questions and then how you want to close the interview. If you're doing the networking interview, then you definitely need to research the person or the field or the company that they work for, because you'll need to indicate that you've done your research in the way that you ask your questions. So do some research, formulate some questions, and then I can give you some feedback on that. But when I do evaluate your questions, I'm looking to see that you have clear questions with a clear purpose, a good balance of open and closed questions, that you avoid those pitfalls that we've talked about in the earlier lectures, and that there is kind of a logical flow. I can see how your questions may go together. And then you'll need to give feedback to people in the class and make suggestions on their questions as well. Now, I also have included major assignment 1, the networking interview overview, and the life event interview overview. So if you click on this, you'll see the reflection questions that you're going to need to answer, and just everything that needs to be turned in. So this interview will actually be due on the 26th of September, and you'll have a full week dedicated to actually conducting the interview. So you need to start thinking about scheduling this interview for the 19th through the 25th. Anytime during that time, you'll need to conduct your interview. And then you can submit your final answers to the questions and interview analysis on the 26th. Okay, so that's everything for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Always happy to help, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you.